Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ABWM webinar regarding the application process. My name is Darcy. I'm the Director of Marketing for ABWM, and will serve as the moderator for the call. In the corner of your screen, you should see a chat box. If you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to type them into the box, and I will communicate them to our presenters. As for our presenters, I have here with me Chris Murphy, who is the ABWM Executive Director, Stephanie Runyon, our Certification Manager, and Allison Toon, our Administrative Coordinator. Our goal today is to walk you through the process of becoming certified and answer any questions that you may have along the way. We've broken the process down into 5 steps. We'll go through each step one by one and identify questions that we get asked most frequently here at ABWM headquarters. But before we get into the step-by-step process, Chris Murphy, again our Executive Director, is going to do a brief overview of the 3 certifications that we offer.
Hi everyone. ABWM currently offers 3 board certifications in wound care. The Certified Wound Care Associate, which was established in 2008, the Certified Wound Specialist, which was established in 1995, and the Certified Wound Specialist Physician, established in 2011. Stephanie will review the eligibility requirements and which certification might be appropriate for you a little further into the presentation. Currently, we have a total of 3,752 wound care professionals certified through ABWM. The breakdown is 636 CWCAs, 2,840 CWSs, and 276 CWSTs. As you can see on the next slide, the CWCA is predominantly non-bachelor degrees, RNs, LPNs, PTAs, and others. And others include sales and marketing, educators, and nutritionists. The next slide will show that the CWS is truly the multidisciplinary certification with representation from almost every discipline in healthcare. And then the CWST is strictly MDs, DOs, and DPMs. The first step in the application process is to go to our website, abwmcertified.org, and download the candidate handbook.
So as you can see here on your screen, we have a picture of the front cover of the candidate handbook. And one of the most common mistakes that we see is candidates submit the wrong application because they just flip to the first section and find the first application that's offered and they mail that to us. But the candidate handbook actually has 3 applications in it, one for each of the certifications. And to help you locate the application, we have color-coded the handbook. And as you can see on the screen, the CWCA is purple, the CWS is orange, and the CWST is a teal color. You'll want to locate the application in the appropriate section of the handbook.
Hi everyone, this is Stephanie, and we also receive a lot of phone calls in regards to what type of degree qualifies for each of the certifications. So here's a breakdown. The CWCA requires an associate's degree or high school diploma with 3 years of wound care experience. The CWS requires a minimum of a bachelor's degree, not necessarily healthcare related, with 3 years of clinical wound care experience. And for the CWST, a candidate must be a MD, DO, or DPM with at least 3 years of clinical wound care experience. And we will go over the experience more detailed in this presentation.
Great. So we asked people to submit questions beforehand, and one of the questions that was submitted to us was, should I submit my application before taking a course? And Allison is going to answer that for us.
Hello, everyone. ABWM is solely a certification body, and we do not give out any recommendations. There are courses available, but it is not required to take one prior to submitting an application. If you still have any questions regarding preparation, you can visit the How to Prepare section of our website for a content outline of each exam, or you can contact the ABWM Foundation or connect with current ABWM associates and diplomats through the Find a Specialist directory on our website, or you can connect them through ABWM Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Great, thanks, Allison. Another question that was submitted to us was, can I submit an application online? And unfortunately, at this time, we cannot take applications through our website. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box as we go along. And at this time, we don't have any questions for the first step, so we are going to move on to step number 2.
And step number 2, in addition to the application that's included in the handbook, and there's 3 different applications depending on which certification you're applying for, color-coded as Darcy had mentioned before. Each candidate must submit the following materials, which includes a CV or a professional resume, your personal statement detailing your 3 years of wound care experience, copies of any professional licenses and board certifications that you hold, your 3 professional reference letters, a signed copy of the ABWM Code of Ethics statement, and your payment. All the materials should be sent at the same time in the same envelope, and ideally we would recommend that you send it by a certified mail, FedEx, or UPS, or one of those that has a tracking service on it so that if there's any problem, you can track where it is.
Great. So, Stephanie, candidates are required to submit 3 years of wound care experience with their application. Can you give us a little more of a detailed explanation of what exactly that means?
Sure. So like Chris mentioned, there are materials that are required that go along with the application. And with that is the resume, personal statement, and 3 letters of references. And with those 3 items, you would collectively demonstrate your 3 years of wound care experience. So in the personal statement, it should be a narrative description. It could be a couple of paragraphs, depending on the resume and references that you have. For the 3 letters of references, we will go over that again in more detail. But again, those 3 items should demonstrate your experience when you submit your application.
Okay, great. So we just had a question that popped up on the screen here, and it is, do the letters of reference have to be from ABWM diplomates?
No, they actually do not have to be from certificates.
Okay, great.
They should be within 6 months of the date of your application.
Okay. Allison, can you give us some examples of wound care experience that would meet the 3-year qualification?
Of course. So say that you're an RN and you have been working in an emergency clinic for the past 2 years. But prior to being an RN, you were an LPN in a nursing home for 4 years. Your time as an LPN would count towards your 3 years of experience. Another example is a plastic surgeon who has been practicing for 20 years but has never worked in a wound care clinic. Their experience as a plastic surgeon counts towards their 3 years. Also, residencies in which you had a wound-related role, that also counts towards your experience. However, time in nursing or medical school does not.
Okay, great. So we kind of just covered this a little bit, but Stephanie, can you tell us who the reference letters should be from and what they need to say in them?
Sure. So your 3 letters of references can be from any healthcare professional, such as a supervisor or a peer colleague, past or present, who can attest to your wound care experience. There is a request form with instructions in the handbook, in each section of the handbook, and the letters should be originally written and not form-like.
Okay, great. And just to touch on that a little bit more in regards to the not form-like that Stephanie just mentioned, we have had people submit, they will write a letter and then have it signed by 3 different people. And unfortunately, we can't accept that. That you need to have 3 different letters from 3 different references. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them. If not, we will move on to step number 3.
Okay. Once your application has been approved and processed through our office, which typically is about 15 business days, you'll be eligible to schedule your exam. You'll receive a postcard and an email notification from our exam vendor, Applied Measurement Professionals, or AMP, indicating that you can schedule your exam. It's best to schedule your exam as soon as possible, as some of the smaller testing centers have limited availability.
Great. So, Allison, when can a candidate schedule their exam?
Once you have received notification by email and postcard, you can schedule your exam as early as 2 business days prior to your desired exam date within your 6-month testing window. Please be aware, though, that the email could go to your spam or junk folder, and it's sent by AMP, not by ABWM. Also, the postcard is indeed just that. It's a postcard, so it could get shuffled into some of your mail.
Okay. What if someone has waited the 15 days and has not received approval?
Applications that are not approved within 15 days are typically missing some information, and this causes a delay in the approval process. We will contact you for any additional information that is needed.
Okay, great. So before we move on, we had a question come up asking us to kind of expand on the personal statement and how detailed it needs to be. So Chris is going to touch on that for us.
Sure. The personal statement can be very brief. Ideally, what we're looking for is just your interest in wound care and your qualifications, and then something outlining your 3 years of wound care experience. And again, it doesn't have to be full-time, and it doesn't have to be in a continuing 3-year time frame. You know, it can be 3 years over 10 years worth of your professional experience. Does that cover it?
Great. So we'll move on, and I think it was Kate that asked that question. Kate, if you'd like us to go into more detail, if you have another question, feel free to ask. Other than that, we will move on to step number 4.
It's important that you review all the testing center policies in advance of your scheduled exam date and time. You'll receive your score report upon completion of the exam. If you pass your exam, you can begin using your new credential immediately. If you do not pass, you are eligible to retest again after 90 days.
Okay, so Stephanie, what happens if candidate schedules their exam and they've run into a problem and they can't take it on the day that they've scheduled it for?
So candidates can reschedule their exam. The first time reschedule through AMP is at no cost. However, additional rescheduling, there's a fee of $150, and there is a reschedule form that must be submitted. Rescheduling must be done at least 2 business days prior to the scheduled exam. A candidate must at least cancel their scheduled appointment because they will forfeit the application fee if they receive a no-show report from the testing company. And also, again, that reschedule form is available at our website under the forms section.
Great, thanks. So I guess the takeaway from that would be as soon as you know that you can't take the exam, you should call right away just to avoid any type of other fees or getting that no-show report. I know we're kind of going along a little fast, so again, questions, go ahead and type them in, and we will get them answered. So Stephanie, what happens if a candidate doesn't pass the exam?
Sure. So for all the exams, there is a 90-day waiting period after a failed attempt. The retest form can be processed earlier, but the eligibility window to sit for the exam will not begin until at least 90 days after the last attempt. After 3 failed attempts, 20 hours of continuing education must be submitted prior to a 4th attempt.
Okay, so then in regards to actually sitting for the exam, Allison, where and when can a candidate sit for an exam?
Well, AMP has over 170 locations throughout the U.S., A link to a list of these assessment centers is available in the exam scheduling section of our website. You can schedule your exam and you can take it by appointment only, Monday through Friday at either 9:30 a.m. or 1:30 p.m. based on your local time. Saturday appointments may be scheduled, but that's based on the availability of the assessment center that you have chosen to use.
Great. So can you go a little more into the exam itself and let us know how many questions are on each and how long a candidate has to complete the exam?
Sure. So for the CWCA exam, a candidate is given 3 hours to answer 120 multiple choice computer-based questions. This is comprised of 100 scored questions in addition and an additional 20 pre-scored, pre-test non-scored items. For the CWS exam, a candidate is given 3.5 hours, and it's comprised of 150 questions. 125 of those are scored items, and 25 of those are non-scored pre-test items. Finally, for the CWSP exam, it's given over a period of 4 hours. It's comprised of 180 questions total, and that's 150 scored items and 30 non-scored pre-test items.
And just for clarification purposes, the pre-test or the non-scored questions are questions that are on the exam that they're used to determine the psychometric validity and the performance of a question for future exams. The pre-test questions are not identified on the exam and have no impact on your score. But that way, you know that when you're taking an exam, that all the exam questions that are on there have been reviewed by 3 teams of subject matter experts and gone through pre-testing to make sure that you know, there was not some kind of error in the way that the question was written or transferred into the exam bank.
Great. So I have no questions here, so let's move on to our final step.
We do have one question that just came in. Is the exam then scored on an absolute scale for passing, or is it scaled according to others taking the exam within a defined testing period? The exam is scored on an absolute scale for passing, so it's not based on what everyone else has done at the same time. The typical pass-fail rate of the exam is right around 70%. A little higher for CWSP. You're welcome.
And thank you, Nicholas, for typing that in, because Chris kind of walked away from the microphone there, so I hope everyone could hear him. We have some questions coming in here, so we're going to try and answer them.
Recertifications specifically for CWSP. All of the exams, all the certifications have a 10-year recertification. If you're currently a CWS, you can recert for a as a CWSP. A lot of people are doing that. A lot are not. They're choosing to stay with the CWS. But the CWSP will have a 10-year recert starting in 2021 at the earliest. And you don't have to, if you want to recert in 7 years, you can recert in 7 years, and then that 10-year clock starts running again.
Okay, and so that's kind of going into our final step here, is about maintaining your certification.
So in order to maintain your certification, you're required to submit 6 hours of continuing ed and submit a $150 renewal fee each year by January 31st. The 6 hours of continuing ed should be for the previous year. So, for instance, those people that are renewing in 2015 will be required to submit 6 hours of continuing ed that they achieved in 2014. And then again, after 10 years, everyone must recertify by exam. It's the same. One of the questions that we just received is the same test or a different test for the research. It's the same test that everyone else will be taking when they're sitting for their CWS, CWCA, or CWSP. Obviously, it's not the same test that we're giving now. It will be 10 years later, or however long you are to do research. We changed the exams. We have two versions of the exams going at any one time, and we change them every year.
So basically, it will just be an updated version of what you had taken 10 years ago.
Correct.
Okay, so Stephanie, how does someone renew their certification, and when are they required to recertify?
Sure. So notices for both annual renewal and recertifications are sent out. However, it is the responsibility of the certificant to stay up to date with their renewals and recertification. So the annual renewal notices are sent out each year in November, and they can be completed online through the My Certification portal. That's where you can log your continuing education credits and submit the dues payment via credit card. They can also be completed by mail or fax. And for the recertification notices, the notices and forms are sent out at least 6 months prior to your expiration date. A candidate must complete and submit the recertification form prior to their recertification date, and those can be submitted by mail, fax, or email.
Great. So I just want to point out that just like we require our candidates to submit their application via certified mail, we do the same whenever we send things to you. So we do require that your address is not a P.O. box, because we ship through FedEx, and FedEx will not deliver to a P.O. box. So you can update your address by logging into the My Certification portal on our website, and we recommend that you log into this every now and then just to make sure that your information is up to date, and then you won't miss anything important that we have sent to you. So moving on in regards to the continuing education, Allison, where can a certificate obtain continuing education?
Continuing education hours can be obtained in a variety of ways. Some of these ways to complete your continuing education requirements are by attending conferences, live courses, any kind of in-services or training, online courses, or any other continuing education organization opportunity.
Great, thanks. So this is kind of like the question that we get in regards to how to prepare for the exam. And again, we don't make any type of recommendations, but we do like to point you in the direction of the ABWM Foundation, and the link to the foundation can be found on our website. We still have quite some time. Haven't had too many questions so far, but I encourage everyone to ask a question now if you have it, and we will certainly answer it, and hopefully someone will ask something that maybe you didn't think of, or it will spark you to think of something. So we're starting to get some in here. Okay, so we just got one that says, if I take my exam and get certified in November of 2014, will I be required to submit 6 hours of continuing ed and pay $150 in January of 2015?
So I can answer that, Darcy. If you get certified in November of 2014, your first renewal will be January 31st of 2016.
Great, thanks.
What is the pass rate for the CWST?
80%.
80%. And then one of the other things, I'm not sure if we mentioned it or not, but in the candidate handbook, there's a content outline for each of the 3 exams. So page 5 is the CWCA content outline. There's also a handful of sample questions as well, and those aren't questions that will be on the exam. Page 17 and 18 is the CWS content outline, and page 29 and 30 is the CWSP content outline.
Great, so we're just kind of filtering through some questions here.
One of the questions is why CWSP through ABWM and not WCC or with NAWCCB? Some institutions are pushing us that way. I think, first of all, American Board of Wound Management, previously the American Academy of Wound Management, the original multidisciplinary board exam, board certification, and probably one of the most respected in the industry. I think there are a lot of people that prefer our exam or our certification over the WCC because there's not a course or any prerequisite courses associated with it. We strictly offer the board certification exam.
Great, thanks, Chris.
Can the annual renewal be prepaid for 10 years or over 10 years for a discounted rate? Not at the moment. It's something that we're looking into. We're just trying to figure out how we would work the continuing education requirement submission. But it is something that we've talked about and we are looking into to see if we can have it prepaid or something.
Thanks. So that's all the questions that we have right now. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to kind of think about it, and if you have any others, type them into the question box.
And going back to one of the other questions that we just had is why ABWM and not the WCC? All of our programs, the Certified Wound Care Associate, Certified Wound Specialist, and Certified Wound Specialist Physician, are accredited by the National Commission of Certifying Agencies, and ABWM is a member in good standing with the Institute of Credentialing Excellence. At this point, I'm not sure that the WCC and the NAWCCB are. Last time I checked, they were not.
Okay, thanks. Good information. Another question that we have here is, what is the website for the AMP testing facilities?
Sure. So there are 2 ways to see where the facilities are located. There's actually a link on our abwmcertified.org homepage on the left-hand side of the screen, as well as the AMP website, which is www.goamp.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephanie.
And there are ability to have special testing facilities. Depending on your geographical area. I think it's 250-mile radius. There's not a center within 250 miles, or if you require special accommodations, we can set that up for you as well.
Great. Okay, so we don't have any other questions at this time. Again, we'll give you a couple minutes here. If you think of anything.
Well, we just want to thank everyone for your commitment to wound care, your interest in getting wound certified, and your interest in ABWM. Again, we're the original multidisciplinary wound care board. We've been around for almost 20 years next year, and all of our programs, again, are accredited by the NCCA. So if you have any other questions after this webinar, please feel free to contact any one of us here at ABWM. Are you aware, another question just came in, are you aware if the ABWM prep course are very well attended as a prep course? If you're referring to the prep course through the ABWM Foundation, which is run by Pamela Scarborough and company, it's a very good prep course, and it's very well attended.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you, Nicholas, for that question.
Is there a fee difference for CWS versus CWSP? The CWS fee is $575, and the CWSP is $995.
Great. Okay. Any other questions?
If anyone's at SAWC Fall or the Clinical Symposium, we'll have a booth there. Stop by and say hello. Maybe you'll be certified by then.
Okay, well, we don't have any other questions coming in. Oh, but we do.
We won't have one this year at the American. The question is, we have a booth at the American College of Surgeons Clinical Congress in San Francisco. We won't this year. We were at their conference last year in Washington, D.C., and we'll probably rotate every year or so on that one. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again, everybody.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to put us up on the screen here. If you do have any questions that weren't answered today, or if you think of anything once you get off the line here, feel free to reach out to any of us. Our contact information is here on the screen, and we will be posting the recording of this webinar on our website, and probably just the PowerPoint slides as well, so that you can have them. And again, just one more time, you can also give us a call afterwards at 202-457-8408. Again, it's 202-457-8408. And also, if you don't want to reach out to one of us individually, if you just email info@abwmcertified.org, one of us will get back to you. So with no more questions, thank you all for attending, and I hope that this was useful for everybody. And yeah, reach out to us if you have anything else.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.